Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It is Friday night, and you are listening to Paranormal Review Radio, the only radio show without commercials and with more great paranormal talk. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Anthony Agati in New York.
And I'm Lucy Liebfried in Chicago. You are listening to one of the highest-rated paranormal radio shows on Blog Talk. No bull, no lies, just a true platform for everyone to share their knowledge and experiences. When searching for the truth, good communication is key. Our phone lines are open for questions or stories. The call-in number is 661-244-9831. And our chat room is also open, so you can type in your questions or comments as well. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Paranormal Review Radio. You'll find more articles, blogs, and full show uploads. And if you have specific questions, comments, or would like to be a guest on the show, email us at paranormal.review@aol.com. Now, sit back, get comfy, and prepare to open your minds. It's time for Paranormal Review Radio.
You know, many of us have read the policies at certain haunted locations stipulating what you can and cannot do. No drugs, no weapons allowed, no burning candles, no alcohol, and yes, no Ouija boards. We've always respected individual regulations and policies, but never understand the logic behind not allowing Ouija boards during an investigation. When I compile a list of possession incidents, 9 out of 10 times a Ouija board was never around. So who believes the Ouija board can be a positive tool for communication? Let's see a show of hands. Oh, wait, I forgot it's radio. Well, our guest tonight has had many positive experiences using the Ouija board and is not wrapped up in the negative hype Hollywood and naysayers have portrayed it to be. Karen Dahlman has been working in the arena of spirit communication via the Ouija board for over 40 years. She is an author, licensed therapist, business owner, and consultant, and a leading expert Ouijaologist. She has written a book called The Spirits of Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication. In her book, she chronicles her experiences, her conversations, and the messages she received while using the board. These are messages of inspiration, healing, creativity, and closure. There are messages from loved ones as well as the wisdom of the ages. Tonight, we will share a different side of the Ouija board, one that you may not be used to. So please help me in welcoming Karen Dahlman to the show. Hi, Karen. Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Hi, Anthony. Hi, Lucy. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Karen. Welcome to the show. You know, it's no secret that the Ouija board has been given a bad rap since the turn of the century, and Hollywood has only helped fuel the fire. But why do you think many of us in the paranormal field still believe that the Ouija board is such an evil tool?
Well, as you said, there's a lot of stories out there about people saying they've been possessed by using the board, and there's stories where people want to blame the board, which is really a neutral tool, on something that went wrong in their life. So I think that's a combination of those two things. Also, the board is very mysterious. I mean, it comes in a box. There's no rules and how to use it, no instructions, except for, ideas of maybe you can have a mysterious conversation with somebody about something. You know who you're talking to. So there's a whole mystique about it. Plus, you're right, Hollywood capitalized on the board because it is mysterious. And, they were really smart to do so because it allowed people to still have this, bring up a new fear in their movies. So when The Exorcist was released in 1973, December 26th, they really capitalized on that. And if you recall the true story of the possession of the boy, which wasn't really a girl, in the movie it was a girl named Reagan, the boy never even touched the Ouija board. So you knew to throw it in there, and it would just cause this great uproar with people, and people ran with it ever since.
Well, Karen, personally, have you ever had a negative experience while using the Ouija?
I wouldn't say negative. Okay, so I've had a couple experiences that turned out a little, I would say slightly negative, but they turned out way I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go that direction. One was when I had some spirits communicate with me who started cussing, and I just said, you know what, I don't need to take this. So I put the board away and said, you can't talk to me that way. Simply, when something like that happens, you just put the board away. You stop using it. The other time, I actually had a spirit manifest that touched me. Now, I do want to let everybody know that that's not uncommon for me. I've been in communication with spirits throughout my life, and it's not unusual for me to see them once in a while, smell them, hear them, touch me, so that's not unusual. But yet, when it gets that level, sometimes you just want to say, enough is enough. But that's the most negative I've had. I never was told to fear the board. And in fact, I received it on December 25th, Christmas, 1973, the day before The Exorcist was released. I was very young, and I had no idea or even qualms or notions to even think about fearing it. So that was my beginning with the board, and throughout my whole life, I just never saw it as a negative tool.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what, Karen, I was really intrigued by your book, The Spirits of Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication. You called it your Ouija tell-all, a 40-year odyssey spent communicating with spirit friends from the great beyond. Can I ask you how you began this journey?
Sure. It all started, it was earlier in 1973. I had a couple girlfriends who lived down the street, and I was their house playing. And we'd play our typical board games and stuff, and all of a sudden they pulled out a new board game. And I didn't know really what a Ouija board was. I don't even remember if I even heard the word. But they pulled it out and said, this is really cool, let's try it. And I thought, what do you do with this silly thing? And they had a planchette, which is that little device that moves around the board, and then, of course, little letters and the numbers on the board. And they were showing me how it moves around when they put their hands on it. I thought, this is stupid. They've got to be pushing it. Come on. I mean, really. They said, try it. And I swore I was going to be dead weight. I wasn't going to allow it. I was going to push it, nothing. And it started moving. And now, who knows, maybe they were pushing it. But let me tell you what happened. We continued to do it, and then we took turns. And then all of a sudden the two girls started talking to another person on the board, which was a little girl they said was a ghost. And I was like, well, who is this? And they go, it's our dead sister. I said, what? I had no idea they even had a sister that died. So that to me was a shock in itself. I said, what are you talking about? One of the twins had a sister who died shortly after birth. She was very young. But yet, in the spirit realm, she still had matured to a certain age where she was communicating with these girls. And they would tell their parents thought it was just, that their kids were playing. But we talked to this little girl as if she was in the room with us, and she was answering questions, we're playing and talking, and at that point, I was sold. I could not believe this, and I believed it. And so I went home and was so excited to tell my parents. And, of course, they thought, oh, yeah, right, wink, wink, I'm sure you're talking to a ghost. But sure enough, Santa Claus brought me my board. Later that year on Christmas, I said, that's all I want for Christmas from Santa.
Well, since that time, I mean, to be called a Ouijaologist, you must have spent an exuberant amount of time playing with it, studying it, communing with it, being around this board for so long, and just, sort of connecting with it. How much time have you spent with the Ouija board or spirit boards in general?
Many, many, many years. And I would say when I was younger, it was more intermittent because not everybody would want to use the board with me or even understood what to do with it. It was probably more intermittent as well in junior high and high school. It was really in college where I pulled the board back out and got into it on a serious level. And in this case, I was at college in my sorority, and we pulled out the board, and I wanted to show everybody how it worked because I had a few friends in that sorority who could use the board really well and believed in the power of it. We would use it and speak to other dead sorority sisters, which we didn't know. We only thought you could talk to dead people. But we had a really interesting experience, again, with somebody's dead sister who I didn't know had a dead sister. And we were both blindfolded when we used the board. And we had another person writing, so we could not see. The two operators could not see what was being spelled out, couldn't even see the board. And we were using a board that was not my normal board. It was a larger board because we really wanted to show everybody that this thing works. Back then I was always experimenting and proving it, or what's going to come through, and trying different experiments. And so the other person wrote. We had about 8 or 9 people in the same room with us, and the board just flew around. I mean, the planchette flew around the board so fast we could hardly keep our fingers on it. And I was shocked when we finished and we had the writer read what the message was. And basically the message was, I always hide people's names. So and so, this is your sister. Just want you to know and let Mom and Dad know and Sis know that when that car accident happened, we were unaffected. We felt no pain. We love you. We've always been with you. We'll be with you again. And in fact, the only pain we feel to this day is the pain that you feel in your hearts from missing us so much. Please know that we're okay. My boyfriend's here as well. He is fine. Please tell Mom and Dad, and we love you and we'll be with you forever. I'm telling you guys, not a dry eye in that room.
Oh, sure.
You could hear a pin drop.
I can imagine.
And it was such an incredible experience. It's when I finally broke the silence and said, oh, my goodness, this is a tool, you guys. We can use this for healing. The gal whose sister was, she was crying nonstop, and she said, I have always wondered what happened to them. I've always felt like they were in pain. I couldn't stand the fact that they had suffered this horrific car wreck, and to know this is really freedom in my heart. She did tell her family, and she felt relief from that. Some gals left the room going, what the heck just happened? I'm not going to talk about this again. Others, their life transformed, and a few of them have spoken with me since and told me how it's transformed their life. That transformed me and really made me look at the board as, goodness, this is a tool. This is not a toy. It's not a game. We can really use this tool in other ways. And that's when, and that was in 1987, 86, 87. That is when I really started studying and researching the use of the board and reaching out to very many consciousness and entities that we're able to communicate with.
Well, had you only used the board to communicate, or did you try just communicating on your own?
Well, interesting question you should ask, because I don't necessarily need the board so much anymore. I can do this through journaling and meditation, and that's been a progression for me. I relied more on the board probably for the next 20 years after that. It's been probably in the last 5 or 6 years I relied more on outside of the board, although I still use the board for more of a tool and training educational purposes and to go directly to the messages in my spirit friends. But they can also come through in my meditations, dreams, and journaling. In fact, they come through a lot.
Right. I'm sure we have some listeners actually right now who are definitely afraid. As soon as you say the word Ouija, they cringe. How do you get someone to understand that the Ouija board or spirit boards in general are not all evil? Or is it even possible to sway someone to think otherwise?
That's a great point because, the Ouija board's not for everybody. As you started this whole segment, you talked about how it's not mostly used in paranormal hauntings, although I've used it in a few. It's because there is this fear about it. I say your feelings are barometers to your life. And if you fear something, look at that fear, what it's about. But if it feels to you that it's not right, because we have our own set of paradigms, belief systems. It's our paradigm that we live within and how we view things. And we're going to view things from that perspective. And if we think and believe that something you're fearful of, it's not worth using because this tool, anything you do in the spirit realm, whether you're doing shamanic journeying, you're a medium, you're meditating, you're working with spirit somehow, you're doing out-of-body experiences, all the astral projections, all this other dimensional stuff, six-dimensional stuff, you really need to feel good about it. You really need to know your center. And if you're fearful, you're probably not going to be in your center and feel good about it. So thus, you're going to attract more negative experiences to you. So, and yes, there really are, there's an astral level There really are deceased people out there who have not gone into light, who do poltergeist activity, who are stuck in their personality. They're no different than they were when they were alive. They may be angry, sad, fearful, all those things. And you can attract that to you. You're going to attract the quality of energy that you're putting out and that you are in that moment. So if you're fearful, I wouldn't do it. Maybe read about it, maybe explore it if you're curious about it. You can always read my book, check it out. I always explain ways to be safe with this tool. But yeah, it's not for everybody. So, if you're very fearful, I'd probably say stay away from it for now.
I think one of the things, the reason possibly that people are fearful of it is because they don't understand the Ouija board, or they don't understand the concept of actually what's going on when you're sitting down at the table and your fingers are on the planchette and you're going through the motions. Can you sort of explain what's happening at that moment to people, or give an idea of what is happening to the person or to the spirit or to the action? What's going on at that moment? So maybe people can sort of get an idea and not be so fearful.
Sure. Well, this is what I've learned over the years, and I ask these questions of they're spirit guides, basically. I call them my spirit friends, and they share with me. They share with me what's happening in order to communicate with, like, for example, angels, or when you communicate with deceased loved ones, or it's a matter of energy vibration. And so my partner and I always say do it with somebody else too when you're starting out especially, but I highly recommend doing it with another person. So you have your partner there sitting across from you, and the idea is that you're creating this circuitry of energy. And my book does talk about ways to start the session, how to protect yourself, how to create the circuitry. But there's a give and take of energy. They tell me that there's this, we all know this, we're all really vibrating. We're a frequency, we're vibrations. And these vibrations help attract similar vibrations. Now what we do when we do the board talking to more of the ethereal beings, we work to raise our vibration, and they have to actually lower their vibration to reach ours. I'm not judging the vibration, saying one's better or worse than the other. I'm just saying there's a difference. They're in a whole other dimension, and their vibration is different than ours. There's no sense of time, and we have this timeline, and it changes our vibration. We're stuck in the physical matter. They are not, and so their energy must change to meet ours. We match ours to theirs, and this is another reason why you don't want to do it when you're fearful, because you'll attract lower energies. But so you work with your energy, they come to you through the energy, and that connection allows them to work with you to move the planchette. Simplest way I can probably say it.
Okay.
Well, Karen, you seem to have an intuitive ability to communicate with both the living and the dead. And I've read, while being a therapist, you've been around some of the most horrifying mental cases and abuse cases in the medical field, and had to communicate with them to get to the root of some of the issues. And you seem to take that same approach to the dead and the voices from beyond. So do you feel that we have much more power and energy than we realize, and that is the root of the spiritual realm?
Lucy, bingo, that's the answer right there. Yes, I do, and you're absolutely correct. This is what I feel. I feel within all of us are great messages within, and these great messages within are from our higher self. That is our self that's connected back to source. Period. End of story. So if we can be in touch with those messages, whether it's a person that has a terrible, they're stuck in schizophrenia or a psychotic episode, or dissociative identity disorder, or post-traumatic stress disorder, when they're dissociating and leaving their body mentally, it's the same thing. Go back and find that message within. And I do that with the spirits when I communicate with them. I do that with the deceased loved ones, and they do that with me. It's just the ethereal beings ask me to go back within and find my answer. They won't tell me my answer. They ask me to go within. So yes, during therapy I work with people not to tell them what they're supposed to think or do or behave or their answer. I don't know their answer, but I help them uncover their own. And so very much the approach I learned in my psychotherapy practice, I use with the deceased spirits, with the ethereal beings. They use it on me. It's just the nature of this whole arena, how it works. If we work with the spirits instead of accusing them, oh my God, you're demonic, you're bad, instead say, what is your message for me? What is the message? What are you here to tell me? Then you start dispelling some of the myths about the evilness of this board. It's not even board, evilness of even the entities out there. Everybody has a spark within them of their higher self, connecting them back to the divine source. And if they could be back in touch with that, then that's when they can start finding whether it's true healing, whether you want to call it putting yourself back together, remembering who you are, finding the grandness within. It's all along the similar line. So yes, Lucy, that's exactly how I work with the energy, using the board as well.
It sounds so logical. It makes so much sense to me. But
yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. When you think about it, it's just logical. It makes sense. But I want to, speaking of both the dead and the living, now, do I have this correct in saying that you believe that we can speak to animals or people via the Ouija board, both dead and alive?
Yes, I do. Yes, that's exactly correct. I spent a session, it was like 4 years, a period of time, this is 89 through 93, when I spoke with nothing but higher selves. This is, again, that self of you that is your greatest self connected back to divinity, to the divine source. This is a very esoteric subject, and I'm sorry it's so spiritual and esoteric. And I say that because I know a lot of people want to hear the boo and the ghost stories, which I can tell you as well. But what happens is with this tool, as you use it more and more, it helps develop you spiritually. This is what I was talking about for your own personal growth. So we spent a period of 4 years talking to the higher self. There was 3 of us involved in this period of time. And we would talk to each other's higher self, but it would also call each other out, like you would talk to my higher self or talk to me. It was this really weird phenomenon. So then I started experimenting with, a few years later, talking to other people's higher self, not even in the room, not even in the locale where I was, possibly several states away. And there was an incredible message we were receiving. And they're like, how did you know that? I go, well, this is what your higher self is telling me. Now, do you call that intuition? Do you call that just empathy or empathic abilities? Do you call that idiomotor? Whatever you want to call it, it's happening. I'm getting messages that are really related to the people. And yes, you can speak also to animals that are dead and alive. I didn't know this. Let me tell you the story, if I may, Lucy and Anthony, about when I first stumbled upon speaking to animals. Great. So it was 1994. I was doing the board with my board operator, and I was in my house, and one of my cats was my very much alive cat. His name is Hermes, was Hermes. He's dead now. But he was sat in a chair. He loved sitting in this chair and watch us do Ouija board. It's just bizarre. The animals seem to like it. And I was talking to my angel, and she had a message for us, and she said, hold on, Karen, because you're not going to believe this, but somebody wants to talk to you. I said, okay, bring them on. She's like, okay, you're not going to believe this. This is in my book, by the way. And so all of a sudden, it slowed down. The planchette slowed down, changed directions. The whole energy changes. I call that the fingerprint of the spirit coming through, or fingerprint of the energy coming through. Each one has a different signature. So that's why I call it a fingerprint. So all of a sudden, I heard what came through was, Hermes cat, I love you. And I went, oh, my God, is my cat talking to me? I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and I'm like, what? Is he talking to me? And she said, yes, very much so. The animals can talk to you. Other spirits, other consciousness, sentient consciousness that's alive can speak to you. This is when I started learning about it. I was like, this is great. So I experiment with that always throughout the years and speak to a lot of people's animals. My live cats, I spoke to my dead cats, but I also speak to people's live pets quite often. And it's interesting, the information they give. Now, they've got to be willing to come through. Most of the animals that are alive really think it's kind of silly because they think they already talked to us. That they speak, we speak cat speak or dog speak or horse speak. Mm-hmm. The truth is that they know their communication with us is all energetic. As you know, you can look in your pet's eyes and you can just feel their love, and you can read their body language and they read yours. They're very much into the energy more so than we are. They're so in touch with unconditional love that they understand energy so much better. So they humor us when they speak to us. And sometimes they don't want to talk, and they'll just flat out tell me. Other times they have all kinds of things to say. But it's really some of the most precious communication I think you can have is when you speak to your pets that are alive.
Oh, You know,
it's sweet.
It's so sweet. No, I want to do that.
It's very sweet. And by the way, in my book, Lucy, I don't know if you saw it or not, there's a section on animal communication. And I give you some conversations two of my cats I have right now communicate. I adopted, or to say a new cat adopted me. So yes, I'm the crazy cat lady with three cats. And the new cat actually named itself via the Ouija board.
Really?
It didn't like the name it was given. Yeah, it was lost, and nobody. So it gave me its name, and its name is Bear. His name used to be George. But it's just amazing, and I know it sounds crazy. I got to tell you, I laugh and I'm amazed at these conversations I have so often. But maybe from doing it for so many years, it's just. I just know where it's coming from, and it's always of a good nature, and it's always positive, and that tells, and so it's always uplifting, and so I'm good with the messages, and that to me is what is the truth.
That sounds so wonderful. God, I want to do that. I really want to do that.
Well, listen, you guys will probably go out and get a Ouija board and start doing your sessions live on your show.
Yeah.
Another show. Well, you know
I
what?
would love to be on that one or listen to it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Let's do some planning. But you know,
I hear you.
As I was reading this book, you know, I was nodding my head in agreement when you talked about preparation before and the things we should do after using the board. Can you just share a little bit of what this entails?
Absolutely, and I'm just curious, before I do, what to you really stuck out? Is there one thing in particular that really stuck out to you that you thought was super important?
You know what? The whole book, the whole tone of the book, to me, was just, I had felt no negativity whatsoever. It was so positive. There's a sense of positive as you read this book. I mean,
it was
really does.
The mental preparation, I think, right?
Yeah, and you know, and that's important. To feel positive is like that's a good part of it. And as I said, you know, I'm using the board. I mean, I have my life that goes up and down, and I have bad days, good days, as we all do. It's just a matter of not using the board when there's really a bad day, or shaking it off before you do the board. And so, therefore, I have really good conversations and messages and sessions. So this is a good point. I have 13 points that I spell out in the book in detail of how to prepare and work and also close a session. But I'm just going to give you a few, just kind of overall, which I think would be good for your listeners to see how I do it with these great results. You know, the first one, as you just said, Anthony, is really being mentally prepared for it. And I want to also include emotional preparedness. And I'm talking about not letting a bad day affect you, where your mood is not where it should be, not up to par. You know, you're still angry about the car that cut you off in traffic, or the way your boss spoke to you at work, or whatever happened, right? So you want to shake that off, and if you can't, it's not time to do the board. But also the feelings you have. What I find the most important part of using this board is how you feel. Because feeling is truly the receptor center of our heart, and it's what we're going to attract to us. It's through our feelings. Animals know this. They sense you through your feelings. They know when you're sad. They know when you're upset. They're going to run from you if they feel like you're, angry. Or they feel it. That is truly getting down to brass tacks. So how you feel is super important. If you don't feel quiet in space, don't use it. But you should feel anticipatory, feel uplifted. And there's ways you can get in that space. And I like to do it with lighting a candle, setting the ambiance in a room. Some people like to pull out crystals. It's whatever. If you have talismans or certain rituals that help you do this, that's great. Use those. Whatever works for you. For me, it's simply lighting a candle, taking several deep breaths, and I do have a breathing exercise that's been really productive in the last several years with the board. Implementing this breathing exercise I call hips to heart. It's in the book. Has really skyrocketed the level of communication we have now. So I do that, and then my partner and I hold hands, and this creates a circuitry, and then we say a prayer. And it's really about asking for, positive interactions, the white light to surround us, the board, our portal, the opening, who we're communicating with. We only speak to that which comes from the white light. We only work with that provides us inspiration and guidance and wisdom of the ages. That's all that can come through, and we're very positive when we say that. And then after that, we have our session. What's super important after you have your session, you must have patience, let me say, during the session, because it's patience, practice, and time under the planchette with your fingers on the planchette, many miles with the planchette over the board to sometimes get the right communication to happen. And it will be gibberish at first, but still always respect it, set that space, and practice and have patience with them, because it's really hard for them to come through in the beginning. It's really hard for us to elevate our energy too. And I would say probably the third most important thing is to thank them for their attempts at communication, no matter how the session went. And that's also when you say thank you and goodbye and you end the session, and you put the board away. You don't leave it sitting out. You put the board planchette away. You put it back to where you keep it, blow out the candle, and leave the space. It's super important to enter a sacred space, to be in it, to hold it sacred, respect yourself, and close the sacred space. Now, anybody conducting hypnosis, therapy, shamanic journeying, any kind of ceremony is going to have those aspects to it. They're going to include those same aspects because you're entering into another realm and you're exiting the realm. That's what you're doing.
I've been around a lot of people utilizing the board many times, and I've found that most of the times in the experiences that I've had, I usually get called upon to sit in that chair and use the board, and then it works. Many times I've been sort of on the edge or, away from the table and watching other people struggle to have it move, have the planchette move. Do you find it that there are certain people that and I'm assuming that it's the attraction between the spirits and the person. Obviously, it's not to me, I don't believe it's the board. I believe it's the person. Do you believe that there are certain people who have that innate ability to attract and speak and communicate with spirits, and others who still have that clear head and are not depressed and don't have the negativity around them, but still have that trouble of moving the planchette, still can't have that open line of communication?
Yes, this is what I think. So I have people that write to me after reading a book and they're trying the board, or they've worked with it over years or tried to, and they haven't had much success. I know quite a few people like that, and it's not the person to just necessarily do something right. I think this is what I believe. I believe everybody can learn to open up to intuitive abilities, and it may not be the Ouija board. It could be, but it may not be. I think we all have the ability to have incredible dreams, to write those down, to hear our messages, to connect with our divine self, our higher self, to journal that. And I want to believe everybody can do the Ouija board, but I do think there's some struggles with it sometimes, maybe because of their beliefs about it, maybe because they're expecting something demonstrative to happen with the planchette. It's a lot of things, and it's not to blame or shame or so they can't do it. It's to say that it may not be their tool.
Right.
People can learn to open up to all kinds of dimensions if they choose to. It just, I think it just depends on the people. Now, I'll tell you this. Everybody I use the board with, it doesn't matter who it's been, and it's been many over the years, it's been able to work. Now, do we get really good spellings, or was it gibberish? Sometimes it was just gibberish. And I know that when I'm doing it with some people, it's not gibberish. And, in fact, most partners I use, there's not gibberish at all. But I just know sometimes it happens, and it's probably this is what I've learned. It's not just one person's energy; it's a combination of both together. You get the level of communication as a circuitry of the two together working, or three or four. Sometimes people put 3 or 4 hands on it. You get that combination. So it's really again, the board's neutral. It's nothing but a tool. It has no sense of energy about it. It's the person. So Anthony, you're absolutely right. It's the person, and it's just maybe not their tool, or they just need to practice more patience and keep trying it.
Right.
I think I took to it rather easily because these girls were doing it so easily, and I saw it as an easy tool to use. Plus, I had my own little visitors and visitations when I was younger. Before that I was already open to some of this stuff. That I think that really probably spearheaded me ahead in leaps and bounds, probably because of those reasons as well.
I think you talked about this earlier on about when I believe when there was a sort of negative spirit around, you sort of not shunned it away, but sort of said goodbye to it and opened your pathway to a good spirit. Is there a way to control who we speak to when we are on the Ouija board and we are ready to speak to whoever is out there and something negative comes through? Is there a proper way to rid that negativity and move on to something else? I think that's what possibly may bring the fear on to people, is that they don't know what to do then. What happens when they're at the board and something negative comes through? They feel as though they're sort of at a loss, and now that they've got this negative energy or this negative spirit around them, now they're stuck with it. But is there a way to sort of direct and control and take charge of this conversation?
Yes, there is, but I will say this: when you first start on the board, and a lot of people write to me and talk to me about their experiences, I find that we tend to talk to dead people. Nothing wrong with that. It's just sometimes we get people that aren't experienced to be in that realm, work at the astral level, where that you do get entities or energies that are still stuck in their personalities of who they were before they died, and just lower astral energies. It's archetypal energies, like you project your fears out there and stuff. That's where you've got to be really careful. So it definitely isn't a tool to use as a toy or a game, or use when you're under a certain influence of a substance or something, or goofing around. It definitely isn't, because you will track that to you. So one thing I would say to avoid some of those negative energies is to do it in the right light we talked about earlier, the right kind of ambiance and mood and feelings. But when you do, like I said, I had a few come on, and there's been others throughout the years I just know I don't want to communicate with anymore. For example, I'll be using the board for a purpose, maybe speaking to one of my angels or guides, and somebody will just pop in, and they'll say, "Where am I? I'm lost." And then I always, my guides are like bouncers for me. I developed a group of beings on the other side who serve as bouncers, or the hostess, the mistress of ceremonies, whatever you want to call them, and they help keep that who comes in one at a time. They help regulate that, and they tell me, hey, watch out, this one, this might be one to talk to. That was more early. That was probably about 20 years ago. I was getting more of that. Now it's real clear they don't come in unless they're invited, or they know that if they're lost, they need some help. So my guides on the other side really help with that. But in the beginning, you don't have that. What I suggest, if you are using this tool and you want to take it to another level with it, some of these communications and messages I'm talking about, and the entities and the beings I speak with, the idea is that you want to go through the dead zone with a really skeptical mind. Hear the messages, be respectful. Anything negative comes on, put the board away, just put it away. Some people like to sage it or brush it off. None of that really matters. It's just that your intent, your choice, is what's going to attract the good or the other part of good, which you don't want. So you put the board away. But as you progress through this realm, I call it the dead zone or the astral zone, you're going to find you're going to be able to go into other levels. It's kind of like where you start, and I suggest always try your darndest to hook up with your guide or your angel. And you're always going to know after time, but also through predictability. Their messages are going to be predictable in terms of they're nothing about supporting you. There's nothing about that's going to degrade you, to knock you down, to say negative things to you, to cuss at you, to speak cruelly to you, tell you what to do. You never listen to those. You want to get beyond that. As you begin working, like I said, into other realms and develop your ability to connect and your energy to vibrate a little higher, what you'll find is these other ones will be able to come through, and they want to help you. These protectors, these angels, these guides, these ethereal beings, they don't interfere unless you ask for them, but they do want to come through and help you, and they can. And once you develop these friends on your side, your own group of spirit friends, you're going to find that those others are going to fall away, and you're not going to be bothered with that stuff. And so there's a way to control it, and I don't know if that's the best word to use, but there's a way to steer it, to guide it, so you can have better experiences. But this is a tool. It's no different than maybe using a pendulum or reading the tarot cards. It's a tool. You're moving into other energies, and you're reading these energies, and you're working with them. And you want to be respectful, and you want to be, most importantly, respectful of yourself and take care of yourself. I always tell everybody, Anthony, along this line, this question you asked, that they really should have their own reflective, contemplative, spiritual practice in place, whatever that may be. Mine is a mix of metaphysical and spiritual practices. I love the Native American tradition. I use a lot of those traditions, as well as the meditation Eastern traditions, and I incorporate them together. And I'm always journaling and writing, reflecting and writing my dreams as a way to get to know who I am in my center. And the more I do that, I can find and fine tune what I attract to me. And when something negative comes through, I have no problem saying get off, get away. Mm-hmm. Or I'm not here to talk to that. And that's just what you have to do. To really use this tool into the level that I'm talking about, and more of the esoteric realms, you've got to have that practice in place. Ouija is not a practice. It's not a spiritual practice. It is just a tool to do your work. That's all it is. It's a tool.
Well, you know what? One thing that I thought about, like when Anthony was asking about, maybe some people don't get a reaction. Just like any other tool that we use. I mean, I know that when people go investigating, they're so anxious that they want to see a spirit. They want to have that connection. Can you be too anxious to make a connection and nothing will happen?
Well, it is exciting, and I guess we could be too anxious. As long as you're anxious and it's like an excited thing, they really work off the energy. So if the energy of being anxious for you is like joy and anticipation, and kind of like when you're a young kid waiting for Santa to come, you're going to get your gifts, or your birthday party or something when you're young. If it's that kind of anxiousness or anticipation, then that's a very positive energy that can help draw them in. If it's anxious like anxiety, like a little more of a concern, that's gonna stop the communication or keep it at a certain lower level. That's important to think about when you're doing this tool, and I'm glad you brought that up for that reason.
Well, you did mention in the book that atmosphere and the planet can affect the session. How so?
Mm-hmm. Boy, that's fun to talk about, because over the years I've learned there's many different reasons why the board can't work, even though you might be experienced at using it. What happens is, so let me back up. I'm going to compare it to like your wireless phone and the cell towers in which make your wireless phones work. So when the cell tower is in a mountainous area and it's topographically challenged, the signal has a better chance to drop until it hits the next tower to pick up your signal when you're speaking. Or if there's solar flares or sometimes different inclement weather, that also can affect whether your wireless phones will actually work on those poles, those antenna sites. So not unlike that, the board works. I call it my cosmic phone, my board. It works much the same way. If there's too much interference in the atmosphere, such as solar flares, inclement weather, high windstorms, sandstorms, they have a harder time coming through. And I've also learned that through certain alignments of planets and some certain eclipses, they can't come through either. It's really fascinating, and I don't always know. I just go, why is it stuck? It's not working. Although it's my same partner, we're approaching the board the same way. We both are in a good space. They say we can't talk tonight, and they struggle to get it out. Other times they'll tell me later and say, yeah, there was a transit of the Venus, of the sun, of the moon. The planets were aligned all weird, and it blocked us. It was harder for us to make communication. So there's so many influences here. I'm talking about more atmospheric influences we can't control. But the influences we can control is how we approach the session, how we approach ourselves, our mental, our physical, our emotional, spiritual health, and how we work with them and raise our energy level. But that's one area we can't control. And so you have to rely on them when it's not going to work. Something else has happened before. If I'm feeling sick or my other board operator is feeling sick, not so much somebody in the room, but the two that are really the main communicators, facilitators of the session, if they're feeling sick, like a cold or something, it won't work. They'll tell you it's just not good to do it right now. It drains our energy. It drains them. It's harder. It's laborious. The communication struggles, and it's just not a win-win, because then you're drawing in other energies. So there's different influences that definitely do affect it, and I do talk about that. You're right, Lucy, in the book. So you can read about that as well to go into a little more detail of it.
Karen, is there a benefit to using the Ouija? Are those who don't use it missing out on a connection that we can't get anywhere else?
No, they're not missing out. No, not at all, because many people will do these kind of connections without the board, and many people have done it at the beginning without a board and don't even want to touch a board. We all have the ability to develop our intuition, our ability to be empathic, that ESP, that perception, extra perception that all of us can really develop. So we can develop in many, many ways. This is just one tool that helped me. Although I have many other tools, like I said, I use in unison with the board. I always have. But you're not missing out on anything. I think if you feel a call towards this tool, you definitely can develop with it. And a lot of people write to me, and I won't ever say names because some of these people, you might know who they are. They're out in the field talking about their experiences. But they originally got started with the Ouija board to communicate with some of their beings and entities that they channel or that they're in contact with. Angels, ethereal beings, multidimensional, interdimensional beings, which we would call those extraterrestrials. They like to call themselves interdimensional beings or multidimensional beings, that they start with the Ouija board and then they went on from there, or they still use the Ouija board. So it's really fascinating. I've just been out in the public for the little over 2 years now, talking about this work that I've been doing for now 42 years, and it's fascinating how people come out of the woodwork and tell me their stories, and I'm thrilled because I'm not alone doing this. There's quite a few out there, you guys, who are doing this work on this level and just, beyond. It's very interesting. And there's some really fascinating cases where, like, a lot of people know the Seth material got started. Jane Roberts got started with the board. Betty White got started with the Ouija board, and she was back at the early 1900s. Throughout the ages, Patient Worth was another one, early 1900s, that worked with the board. I can go on and on. I mentioned some in the book. You can go research. But they started with the board, and from that they were able to write incredible books, channel incredible information, bodies of knowledge that they share with others that have helped others in their life. The list goes on. And without even really knowing that when I was younger using the board, it wasn't until I probably got in my college years I really started reading all those books that talked about that. And I was like, yeah, this is how I'm using the board as well. And it's interesting because there are a lot of parallel things that I'm reading they get that I'm getting. And so it's just one tool of many to use. And use it if you feel called to it, and if you don't, there's other tools that if you feel inclined to do this kind of work.
I think you just mentioned this, or I may be going off the board, no pun intended, but some have said that the board has allowed them to speak and communicate with aliens from other planets. Have you ever experienced that?
Let's just say I've spoken to interdimensional beings, and they identify themselves sometimes by names or by locations. So I'd say yes. I haven't really come out publicly with that yet, and that would probably be my Advanced Ouija 101 book. But yet, I'm launching a new website. You have it, KarenADahlman.com. And in that, I'm going to start sharing a lot of these sessions that I'm having and getting into some more of these advanced topics, such as the higher self, interdimensional being, which is ETs, a little going beyond some of the stuff we're talking about tonight. But no, that's a great question. I know people that I've worked with and are in communication right now with those types of beings via the board. And there's channels out there that many of you probably know who do this work too. They didn't necessarily use the board, but they speak to supposedly these kind of beings. So
right.
What I found, if your mind is open and you're living and working outside of the box or outside of the board, no pun intended, that you really can open up to and communicate with to many sentient conscious beings. It's really mind-blowing when you get going with this. You're only limited by your beliefs, only limited by what you've told and what you think. And so I really try to keep expanding those boundaries with the board. And I continue to do more and more experiments with that to push it.
Awesome.
That's interesting.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.
We had a debate earlier last year on the use of the Ouija, and someone on the panel brought up the point that they don't mind the board, but just don't like it that it's being geared towards children by placing it in stores next to other board games. What's your stand on that?
Well, I got it as a child. I was 8 years old. And it is marketed as a game. And I'm here to tell parents it's not a game. Now, you tell your children not to do something, it's almost like you got to almost do reverse psychology sometimes, because they're going to probably go to a girlfriend's house as a sleepover, like my house when I was little, and use the board. You know? So it's almost better if you're, So this is how I would approach it. I wouldn't necessarily go out and get your kid a board. Yet if the kid comes to you, your child, and says, I've been using the board at Susie's house down the street, I'd say, what is it about the board that fascinates you? What are you learning? Maybe it's just that they had their cat that died and wants to communicate with it, or their grandmother, or they have questions about the other side, or what happens when you die. Maybe it's just a matter of you sitting down and facilitating a conversation and answering those questions or inquiries they might have. You know, if they're going to do it, they're probably going to go down the street and do it, although you could tell them not to do it. So I think it's really a preference of that parent with that child, and where they think their kid's maturity is, or what they think they're going to do with it. We don't want to mess around with this. It's not a toy. I was so fortunate at the age of 8 to just know that. I guess, I don't know why, I just did, and I never messed around with it as a game. Although I did sleepovers, we didn't know how to protect ourselves. We talked to all kinds of things. I think most of my friends didn't believe it, so nothing really affected them. I didn't know if I believed it, they were pushing it or not. So I think that happens with kids. They have a short span of focus at times. They may just play with it for a week and then go, oh, that's stupid, it doesn't work. Because I'm going to tell you what, to get it to work, you kind of have to be a little more serious with it and allow it to work. And a lot of times you could say the other kid in the room might be pushing it with them. But I'm not against it. I'm not for it. But I would say find out what the reason is why they want to use it. If that topic comes up at your household, just inquire a little bit more about what they really are trying to seek and find.
Well, a good friend of the show, Bob Murch, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's talked to us a number of times.
Of course I know Robert. Robert Murch and I are really good friends. Yes.
He's talked to us.
Well.
Good. I mean, he's a great guy, and he's talked to us a number of times on and off the air, and he has said many times that the board is just a board. It's basically what you're saying, and it's the person and the energy that is what is motivating the communication. And so to demonize the board is like throwing, and he said this specifically on one of the shows that we had, which I loved this metaphor that he said. He said to demonize the board is like throwing away your cell phone when you have a verbal argument with someone on the phone.
Yep.
Do you think the masses will ever remove the stigmata of the Ouija and come to understand it better?
No, I don't think so. I think, again, because it's sold as this toy, and people are upset about that. It's sold without directions. Everybody has their own opinion about it. There's a lot of fear around anything spooky or anything paranormal or mystical. I don't think so, and that's okay. I'm totally okay with that, because I think there's something for everybody. But also, it helps kind of sell the books and the boards.
Right.
And I'm okay with that too. Yeah. I 100% agree with Robert on this, and he and I speak about this all the time too. And in fact, if I can put a little plug in here, we've got a huge OuijaCon conference that Robert Murch and his Talking Board the Historical Society is sponsoring. I'm one of the guest speakers there, coming up in April 2015 in Baltimore, Maryland, from the 23rd to the 25th. That's going to be an incredible event and show, and I hope you guys can make it, because it'll be anything, everything under the sun Ouija, the good, bad, the ugly, and all in between. So it'll be fun.
Is that at the new museum there?
Yes, and the museum's going to be open to view. All the talking boards, spirit boards that the Talking Board Historical Society has put together. It's really going to be a beautiful display, and you're going to meet some of the bigwigs and the people that work with the board all the time, or have experiences with it, and also the people that have either worked on paranormal shows and stuff of that nature as well, with the board or without the board. So it's going to be a really cool event. So I hope people can come out and join us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I know one of the things that I've read there's so many websites, and the paranormal groups out there have their own take on how you end a session on a Ouija board, and people have talked about, all these rituals and what you need to do and what you don't do when you end a session on a board. I mean, let's just see if we can set the record straight from the professional, from Karen Dahlman. Is there anything that is proper in how to end a Ouija board session, or is there just no other way, you just put the board away?
Well, look, you end it, okay, because you've set up this whole stage, and this to me is the, quote, proper way. Okay, we all go about the spiritual realms, the paranormal, metaphysical realms in our own way, but the important thing is protection, being clear on your intention, what you want to have happen during that session, and I always say thanking them, having respect for the communication is a way to end the session. I always end it with, okay, please provide us your final last words, parting words. I always make sure there's a parting words, there's a wrap-up or summary or last words they want to say. And I say, thank you very much for your time this evening, for the attempts of communication and the message we received. They're always taken within our heart. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye. And it just stops, and I feel the energy leave, and then we just put the board away. I have a collection of boards, too. And as Robert Murch has many, and I have not as many, but I have them out in my house. And this one board I use, I just put that one away. It stays in its special space, and it's planched up in a special box, and I just put those away because it's like my favorite tool to use. It's my favorite board. It's the board I got from Santa Claus. It is my favorite board, so I do put it away. It's honoring the space you were in and leaving that space. So by thanking them, by saying final message, goodbye, you close it. That's all I do every time. And there's no ill effects, there's no demons and weird ghosts hanging out and stuff like that. That doesn't happen. That's how I end it. Other people might have rituals, which is fine. You could do a prayer, you could sage it, put incense over it. But the biggest thing I suggest is just put it away. It's showing respect for your tools. And it's just a tool. Again, it's just a neutral device. It's a tool. There's nothing special about Ouija board, the masonite, the wooden ones, the cardboard ones. In fact, you guys, I take paper sacks and I'll just write the alphabet on it, numbers on it, yes, no, goodbye, hello, and that kind of stuff. And I'll take a Pyrex dish, turn it over, or a double old-fashioned, and it'll move. It'll spell. Again, it's us. It's the communication,
right.
The connection, the circuitry. Yeah, it's not the board. So you don't have to go burn your boards. In fact, let me know about them. Send them to me. I'll be happy to take your boards if you think they're possessed. I'll add them to my collection. It's not the board. It's ourselves. It's our own fears. It's our own projections. And that I stand firmly on that. From all the years I've been doing this, and all the people I've spoken with about this, who use it on this in this light, who use it like this.
So, Karen, what lessons can we learn from using the Ouija?
Well, you can learn, first of all, the basic lesson is about respect for yourself and respect for the communication, which means opening yourself up to these other dimensions. That's the first thing you will learn, and that's just on a very basic 101 level, that you can open these channels of communication, whether it's a deceased person to obtain closure on grief, or whether it's an ethereal being or an angel whispering wisdom of the world or the ages through your ear. It's quite beautiful in that regard. The other thing is that you can learn, as I said, to learn to speak to other sentient beings with consciousness, such as animals, higher self. There's others. I spoke to a person in a coma. I spoke to a fetus in the womb. I mean, all kinds of interesting things like this. You can learn sexes of babies. All kinds of stuff. The list goes on and on. But what I try to tell people, and what I encourage when you work with the board this way, is that you can really learn to be in touch with your higher self. It sounds funny because here I'm talking to entities outside of myself, but yet I'm not. The belief here, and here we go, we'll get some advanced Ouijas, like Ouija 400 now, 401. It's when we work with this the board on this level, what we find is that we can communicate with this global source, this divine source that we're all part of. And in fact, you're not disconnected. I'm not disconnected from it. Anthony, you're connected. We're all part of the same. And so we can communicate with that, which actually is talking to our part that is the wise one inside. So my spirit guides, instead of answering me directly, they'll say, after the conversation we had last session, what do you think you've learned? Or they'll say, congratulations on trying that new technique. I see that it's working well for you. It'll be things like that to make me think. And so when we have sessions, we have conversations during the middle of the session with our hands on the planchette. And this is one of the things you start to learn. You can have like the third guide there with you, if you will, who's going to communicate with you in your circle. So you, your partner, and maybe who else is in the open message circle and this being, you all have this conversation. Just when they the planchette starts to move, we all shut up and we listen to them and they listen to us, and it's this dialogue. And so you really, the whole goal here in what I'm talking about is really getting to know, again, I've said it many times and I probably can't say it enough because I have to beat this into my head myself, is that we really are learning to be in touch with that part of us that is connected back to source. And this is just one tool to do it. And I know people are going to go, I disagree because it's all evil. I'm here to tell you it has not been evil for me. In all these years I've used it, and I've used it as a tool to do that. But again, there are many other tools to do this as well. So you can learn to do that through the board. You're not missing anything if you don't do that through the board, but by all means you could gain this level of communication. It is an easy way to have this communication. It's a great place to start. But I always say take it from there and work and use the tools that work for you the best. It might just be you alone, just learning to connect with these angels and these guides or your higher self.
Well, what do you hope our listeners take away from reading the book, Spirit of Ouija?
Well, I really hope they understand that the book was written in a real simple format, so it's almost like they're sitting across from me on a table having a conversation. We're sipping some tea or coffee, and we're just having a conversation about, well, the Ouija board and what it's done. I want it to be a very simple read, and most people tell me it has been that for them. It's a benign tool. I'm here to tell you it's a benign tool, but you can affect it by what you think and your intentions. And so to use this tool, let's really get in the right frame of mind, right space, and then you're really going to skyrocket and spearhead yourself forward by using this tool. You can. I'm not saying you necessarily everybody will, but you can. I hope people walk away understanding that the real message here is that once we tap back into ourselves, there is this incredible energy within, I would call it our greatness within, that allows us to come forth, bring forth, and express all our abilities, capabilities, skills, talents that we have latent, that we're not even aware of. And this is just one tool that helps you be reminded of that and to hopefully start bringing that forth. It's really quite incredible how this unfolds as you continue down this path or this odyssey with my friend, the Ouija.
Karen, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you and to pick up your books?
Well, Lucy and Anthony, thank you so much for allowing me on your show. I really appreciate it. It's a great forum. Listened to your show before. And where people can find me, is you can find me on my website. I have two. It's KarenADahlman.com and also CreativeVisionsPublications.com. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, all under Karen A. Dahlman. And if you go to my website, you can click on Contact Us. And what we're going to do, if you give us your email and permission, we'll add you to our mailing list. We're going to be offering special discounts for my third book that's coming out. It's going to be released in April. And it's really about, I'm talking a lot about the Ouija board and how I use it as my great oracle, but also it's talking about the alchemy of personal transformation, allowing more mystical experiences to happen within your life. So you can have this experience with or without the board, but in many other ways, so your life can feel more co-created by yourself. And that book's coming out in April, and if you sign up on the website, we'll definitely put you on our mailing list. We'll let you know about WouijaCon. We'll let you know about this book coming out. And they can also find my books, paperback, and also on Kindle and Amazon.com. I have on my website, you can order, this is only for Canada and the United States, you can order the book's autographed copies. But you can pretty much go to any bookstore and ask for the book, and they'll order it for you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Karen A. Dahlman, the author of The Spirit of Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication. Pick up a copy today. Thank you again, Karen, for coming on the show, and we would love to have you on again.
Thank you so much, and I would love to come back. Let's set it up.
Thank you, Karen. And again, I just want to reiterate again to our listeners, you can hear more from Karen at the WouijaCon, which is this April 23rd to the 25th in Baltimore, Maryland. It is actually celebrating the 125th birthday of the Ouija, and you can pick up your tickets. You can actually go to, I believe you said, Karen's website, or you can go to TBHS, which is TalkingBoardHistoricalSociety.org, their website, to purchase tickets for that. It is. I'm looking at the lineup right now. It's got Rob Murch, Jeff Belandra, Chip Coffey, Karen, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, John Zaffis. A huge lineup. This is going to be an absolutely awesome WouijaCon. So, folks, go out there and get your tickets. I know I'm going to go actually pick up mine, Lucy. I'm not inviting you, Lucy. I'm going by myself. So thank you, Karen, so much. Thank you for coming on the show. We'd love to, again, like Lucy said, have you back on, and have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. And when you come to WouijaCon, come say hello, please.
I will.
Everybody.
We will.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Karen. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
You know, we've talked Ouija so many times. It's almost become like a mission. Well, I'm not going to speak for you, but it's become a mission of mine to keep talking about the Ouija board and trying to set the record straight with this, because I keep going to web pages and looking at haunted locations that, you know, Lucy and I are in the midst of planning our next investigation, or, you know, hopefully it'll be a live investigation on the radio so you guys can participate. But we're looking at websites and we're looking at these locations, and again, I keep seeing over and over again where they have the policies and procedures and they stipulate on there no Ouija boards allowed. You know, and I understand it. I get it, because, and I don't want to say it's the ignorance of the owner's part. I think it's the fear of the owner's part. It's not so much the ignorance. Maybe that's a wrong word, but I just wish that people would turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to learn more about it. Before I stipulate to someone that they cannot do something, I'm going to learn more about it and try and understand it more. One of the shows that we did a few months back was the Church of Satan. And when we had Corvus Nocturnum on, I just thought it was a breath of fresh air to bring him on the air and talk about the Church of Satan and get it out in the open and discuss what the Church of Satan is all about. I can guarantee you now, if whoever's listening to the show right now and listening to my words right now, who has not listened to that show, is thinking, what the hell is he talking about? He talked to someone from the Church of Satan? What is he, a devil worshiper? Is he killing babies on the side? That's the mentality that people have when you bring up Church of Satan. But when we talk to Corvus Nocturnum, who is one of the higher priests in the Church of Satan, and you got to understand what the mentality is, what the concept is, what the beliefs are, what they believed in, what they did and did not do according to their beliefs and their faith. It's not so much faith, really. It's their belief. It's their way of life. That's what it was. It was their way of life. Their potential for living the best in the skin that they have at the moment. And that was the basis for the Church of Satan. And it had nothing to do with these devil-worshipping rituals. And getting to the heart of that, I think, opened up my eyes, because I can tell you honestly, I didn't know what to think when I heard and when I said to myself, you know what, maybe we should think about having someone from the Church of Satan. And then when I started to do the research, I started to understand it better. And I said, you know what, I can't wait to have this guy, Corvus Nocturnum, on the show and talk about the Church of Satan, because I want everybody else to understand what this is all about. And I think it opened up the ears and eyes of everyone who was listening to the show to understand the Church of Satan a little bit better and not have that negative blanket over that topic. And so I'm sort of trying to create that with this Ouija board topic and trying to get it out there. And I'm not trying to drill it in people's heads that you got to do it. You got to listen to me. Stop with this negativity of the Ouija board. As Karen has said, some people are just fearful of it, and they will always be fearful of it. And that's fine. But I think you still have to have an understanding of it. You have to have an allowance to yourself to understand that the Ouija board is just a board. And we've made the similarities between the Ouija board and a digital recorder. When you guys who are investigators out there who are listening, when you go into a haunted location and you do your investigation, do you sage your digital recorder? Do you put crystals and run around in circles around your digital recorder before you put it back in your case and go home for the night? No. It's the same thing. To me, it's the same thing. I think because it's technology, it's less personal, I think. And so, therefore, we don't think it has that personal connection. That all it's doing is just recording the atmosphere. But what the board is doing the same thing. What both tools have, what the recorder and what the board has in common, is you. You're the one that is the commonality, the common denominator in both scenarios. So it is you who is creating that connection, and you are the one that is making that communication, is opening up that path and that doorway to the other side. I hate to see that this board is getting that negative connotation, and for so many years, that is not just since the Exorcist movie since the 70s. It is almost over 110 years, I would say. It's from the beginning of the spiritual movement. And I can, if you want, I can get into that whole mess and how that was created. But and it was all over money. It was all over money, and that's why that the Ouija board has this, spirit boards basically, in general, have this bad stigmata over it. But I'm just trying to get people to understand it. You can still have a negative feeling towards it. You can say, I don't like it, I don't want to use it. But I'd appreciate it if people would at least understand that it is not the board that is opening up this portal to the demons and all of this nonsense. It is you the person. It is you the possession of the energy and the light that is creating that communication and is creating what is happening with that board. The board is, as Karen has said, and as Bob Murch has said, and other people have said, it is you that is creating that communication and what is funneling this planchette that's moving on that board. The board is not moving on its own. You are creating that energy with the help of the spirit to move that board.
Well, I think the best point that Karen made was that it's a tool. It is just a tool. It is no different, in my opinion, than using the recorder, and it's no different than using any of the tools that we use when we investigate. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I would like to see people understand it a little bit better and not automatically say evil. You know, I mean, everyone has a story. Well, I know somebody who got possessed and stuff. But yet I haven't, in my own experience, come across anyone that has actually experienced that. And if it has happened, I don't think it's the board that did it. I think there's other factors that may have, opened themselves up. I mean, she talks about getting in contact with your higher self. I've come across this when I read tarot cards. I mean, people are afraid to get their cards read because they think it's something evil, and it's not. They're all tools. They're all tools that help you connect with energy. And as far as the Ouija goes, I really, really, really do not see what all the negativity is about. It is just a tool. It is another tool. And, of course, you have to take the precautions like you do with anything else. Anytime that you're going to connect with spirits, with a different realm, with a higher energy, you have to take some kind of precaution. But I don't think the board is any different. I mean, it's simply a board. It's simply a board and a planchette. Yeah, your energy is attached to the planchette, but that's what makes it move. That's what makes the connection. So I'm hoping that a show like tonight and all the discussions that we have will help at least to educate people a little bit more and not to run screaming, oh, evil, evil, as soon as they hear the word Ouija.
You know, in doing a little bit of prep and research before the show, and way back, you know, in the other shows that we've done on the Ouija board, one of the stories, or one of the historical stories that I had read about spirit board communication was in Roman times, and it's something with an A, an orator. It's like I guess a Roman oracle or a Roman, I want to say psychic, spiritual advisor, some sort, would utilize chickens and corn feed, and that would be, the chicken would almost be the planchette, and the corn feed would be the sort of stimulant, and on the floor or on the ground in the stone would be these numerals and letters, and this Roman spiritual advisor would speak to the spirits on and question the spirits on how to how to proceed with any sort of societal questions that they had, or any spiritual answers that they, or spiritual questions that they had. He would confide in this and would ask the chickens, basically, and the chickens would peck on the floor and peck at the numbers or letters that were on the stone. And that was the first. This was in, I think it was 100 BCE. This was in, this is over 2,000 years ago. So this has been around for a very long time. And as I alluded to before, the switch over when spirituality and spiritualism sort of came into effect, when people started to see that the board was actually working, when the spirit boards were working and actually giving answers and helping people, that the psychics at that time said that these boards were producing evil or summoning evil spirits. And you better watch out when you're using these. And so it created that fear in society at that moment in time. And this was around the turn of the century. And so that's when the fear began. And that's when we all started to say, oh, well, we should not be using this board now. That's who created this fear. So it wasn't born out of factual stories where people were killed, possessed, any negative, extremely harsh negative experiences that had happened during an experience with a Ouija or spirit board. It came out of fear because psychics were losing money and therefore wanted to bash the spirit board community and the people using the spirit boards. So that's where the fear came out of. So if you understand where it came from, you can understand and get to understanding, or at least trying to grab a hold of what the whole spirit board communication community is all about, and what is the actual essence of it all. And those are some of the questions that I had asked Karen about what is actually happening to the person or to the board or to the spirit when you're sitting down and you have your fingers on the planchette and you're asking these questions. What is actually happening? I think that's the fear that people have. They don't know what's going on. And the fear of the unknown actually creates negative connotations to things. When you don't know something, you fear it. And you run stories in your mind of what could possibly be going on. Are these spirits entering my body and And are their fingers going through my fingers and moving the board? Is that what actually, and that's what creates that fear. I think the understanding of this board is what is going to prevent people from understanding it. And I'm not saying all of this so that people start to take these stipulations off of the haunted locations boards. I don't care. It doesn't bother me if it still is on the boards when we go and look and go and investigate. I'm not going to use a Ouija board. I'm going to respect everyone's decision whether or not I like it. But I'm going to continue to utilize it, and I'm going to keep educating people. I want to try and keep educating people to the understanding of the Ouija board because I don't think it should be feared. I have two right now that are sitting and facing in front of me as I'm speaking to you all. They're not possessing me to say this. They're not demonizing me every night in my home. They are here. And I think also, too, because many people can relate to this, and I'm going to ask the question sort of rhetorically. When was the first time, everybody listening right now, when was the first time you ever used a Ouija board? Lucy, answer the question. When was the first time you ever used a Ouija board?
At a
How
party
old were
when
you?
I think I was 13 or 14.
There you go.
Had
when you
no
were young.
idea what I was doing.
Right.
No
and
idea.
So when you're young, you're naive. You probably are asking it questions because you're inquisitive enough to say, when am I going to die? Or, I want something bad to happen to me. Scratch this person or hit that person. Or, you're attracting the negativity. And so when the actual incident happens that's negative, you're frightened, and that memory stays with you forever. And so, therefore, that is implanted in your mind so that when you are 20 years older now, and you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, and you're saying, well, I remember when I was a kid, this happened. It was so bad, and I will never touch it again. And oh my God, that's it. It's never going to be in my home. I don't want it near me. I'm not touching it. Whatever. That's the basis of a lot of people's fears as well. And I think you just have to take it. You have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about the board and understand it a little bit better. Because I don't think that the board is negative. It's the person. It's the intention. We've talked about that. Lucy, you've talked about that 100,000 times.
Well, yeah. My whole thing is the possession aspect of it. Yeah, I believe possession happens, but I think it's a lot rarer than we tend to talk about. People, again, media, people watch movies, I think people basically want to be scared. I think they really want to see demons and they want to get something scary. I think the whole possession aspect of it is really a lot of, I hate to say this, but I think it's a lot of bull. I don't think it really happens as much as we think it does. I think it's rare, but I do believe it does happen. Now, on the other hand, too, again, like anything else that you use when you're trying to communicate with the other side, if you don't know what you're doing, of course, you don't get into a car and you don't know how to drive it, you're going to end up being in an accident. Well, it's the same thing with a Ouija board. It's the same thing with using a digital recorder in a haunted location. Same thing with the spirit box. If you don't have a basic idea of what you're doing, you're not going to get a good result. It's logic. And the other thing I think that we tend to forget, yeah, most of us have had our experience when we're young. We don't know what we're doing. But Karen talked about it. It's respect. It's respect for yourself. It's respect for the spirits that you're communicating with, whatever energies you are. It's respect. You know when you go into a haunted location, if you don't show the proper respect for the energies that are there, you're not going to have a good experience. You're not going to have a positive communication. It boils down to respect. You're looking around. Are they communicating with you?
Yeah, I heard. I I don't know if it's coming from out.
Opened up that portal.
I don't know. I just heard a voice. I don't know. Maybe it's my guy from my house that always tries to get in contact with me. Anyway, one of the things that interested me when learning about Karen and reading her book, the idea of being able to talk to the dead and the living. Not just the concept of animals and people, but the dead and the living, and this whole idea of consciousness and reaching that astral dimension or that astral plane and tapping into the consciousness of different people and I guess a universal consciousness, and being able to grasp that communication and communicate on the same basis, on that same level. That fascinated me. What are your thoughts on that idea?
I love it. And I will be honest with you, it's something that I have tried myself, not using a board, but just to tap into someone else's energy, trying to get a feel, maybe a connection with someone else to see if there can be communication. I love the idea. I think it's a possibility. I think it can happen. I would love to be able to increase my knowledge enough to be able to do that. And I think we can. Like Karen says, the Ouija is just a tool to open ourselves up to our inner selves, our higher being. Well, being in that state, being in that higher state, of course, that would be, the communication without being near someone, without speaking to them, but being able to communicate, to hear their thoughts. I mean, yeah, maybe it sounds a little fantastic, but I think it's a possibility, and I really, really like that idea. I love it. I mean, the whole idea about speaking to the animals, oh, my God, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. You have no idea. This is something that I'm never going to stop learning about the Ouija. I am so fascinated by it, and I am so fascinated by the potential that there is with it. I don't see it as anything evil. People talk about, it opens up portals and it opens up. Well, yeah, a lot of things can open up portals and doorways to the other side. I don't believe that a single board made out of wood or cardboard can do it. There's got to be something else that's going to open up that portal. And what comes in and how it affects you is going to depend on your state of being. If you're in a negative place, you're going to get negative. If you're in a positive mode, you're going to get positive. It's not just the Ouija. It's everything. It's life itself. It's being conscious. It's being aware of your place in the universe. And if I can communicate with someone else on that level, on that extremely high level, that's a beautiful thing.
I'm curious to know if folks who are in chat right now, if you're willing to answer the question, if you guys out there have ever had trouble working with the Ouija board, if you've ever sat down at the table or have had the board on your knees with your partner and have asked questions and it just would not move for you, and then the moment you got up and switched partners with someone else, boom, right then and there it just started to move freely like it had done it all night long. Just curious to see if there was any problems with folks out there, if people had experienced that, where they were just so frustrated that it just never worked for them, or most of the time it doesn't work for them, but sometimes when it does, it really does work. I found with me, and I don't know, and that's why I was mentioning it to Karen, I think it's the person, and I don't know whether or not it's being open, but I think it's the person. It's the psyche of the individual. It could be that there's an attraction from the other side to an individual, a specific individual, where they feel more comfortable. Because let's just say this, they were human beings before they died. Granted, obviously. Okay? So therefore, feelings are energy, right? So those feelings, that personality goes with you when you cross over. So you still have those feelings on the other side. And so when you meet someone, picture yourself as a spirit, and you're on the other side, and you come in contact with someone who's maybe, say, is doing the Ouija board, or maybe is at a location, and you are now coming down and visiting them. I guarantee you are going to pick and choose who you feel comfortable enough with to talk to, because you're not just going to talk to anyone. If I see someone, even if you're alive and you're walking down the street or you're in a room, you're not going to just go and talk to anyone. You're going to talk to someone who you think is a little bit friendly. Say that again?
I do.
Yeah, I know. You can talk to a chair. But you're not going to walk up to just anyone and have a conversation. You're going to try and pick out someone. You may do one of those little stand back, standoffish kind of things and scope people out first, which is what I think a lot of the spirits do, and we've said that before. They tend to scope us out a little bit in the very beginning to sort of see who we are and get a feel for us and whether or not they want to play or talk to us. If they don't, then they walk away. If they do, then they hang around and they start to talk. I think that you will not speak to someone who you're not comfortable with. And so I think it's the individual itself. I don't think it's a particular trait that you have to have in order for either the spirit board to work or for you to communicate with the spirit in itself. I think it's just if the spirit is attracted to you in communicating at that moment, then they will communicate with you. I think it's also, too, it's the vibe that you give off. It's the energy that you're giving off that will set the tone for a first impression. And so if you create a demeanor about yourself that, you're badass, nothing hurts you, you're not afraid of anything, you have that I don't give a shit attitude, well then nobody's going to talk to you, dead or alive. So it's not a particular trait that you have, it's more of the kind of person that you are. And if you give off that, I'm not going to say happy vibe, but if you give off that vibe that is attractive to another person, they're going to talk to you. And some people are attracted to different types of vibes, so you may not get all of the spirits all the time. But I found a lot of times, most of the time when I do the Ouija board, they're attracted to me. They constantly, and they're attracted to you as well. And I don't know if it is because we've always had that connection, and it's always the connection that we have when we go to a location. We right off the bat, we get constant communication all the time, and I don't like to boast, but we do. But I find that when I've been at parties and I've been around gatherings, and other people have done it in front of me, and it doesn't work, and they give up, and then I'll sit down with another person, and boom, it starts to work, and it starts to move. And they all hate me. They all say, well, what do you do, and why is it you? And I don't know what it is. And so I think if you are having that trouble out there, and for folks who are thinking, I don't know what to do, I've cleared my mind, I'm open-minded, I want to learn, I want to communicate, I think it's thinking about what's the mindset that you have at that moment. What are you feeling? Maybe it's the demeanor. Maybe it's how you act. Maybe it's the emotions and the feelings that are going on in your mind that you may have to think about a little bit. But don't feel frustrated. Don't give up. But don't try so hard. I think becoming natural will be more authentic and will be more true or more pure for the spirits on the other side to see. They know when you're faking it, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, just exactly what you said. I mean, we've been very lucky. Every time we've investigated, we get communication. I mean, it may not be a lot because they're not on call, okay? If they feel like talking, they'll talk. If they feel like communicating, they will. I think it has a lot to do with the energy that you put forth. If you are open, if you are willing to learn and to communicate, they're going to come to you. I mean, I just have this personal feeling that a lot of the spirits that are on the other side that do communicate, they're looking for someone to get their message across. And if you just happen to be that person that is open, I mean, you yourself, you may not be in the happiest of moods, but you are open. You have an open mind. You are the one that is willing to look for those answers. I think they have the answers and they want to give them to you. They want to give them to anyone who is open. Certain people always seem to get connection. I mean, I got someone here and I still don't know who they are that keeps trying to get my attention. And I don't think it's a connection. I don't think it's a relative. I think it's someone who's in this building who just needs an outlet, you know. So if I can be that outlet, then I guess I'm the one that has to be the outlet. Same thing with the board. I mean, if you're going to use it, don't expect it to go, you know, start moving right away. I mean, it may be something that you have to work at. You know, Karen talked about that. She studies it. She's learned about it. Well, you don't expect to get into a race car and to go 100 miles an hour right off the bat. You have to learn how to drive it. I think the Ouija is basically the same thing. You have to kind of learn how to work with it.
You can go 100 miles an hour as soon as you get into a car without having previous knowledge. You may crash it, but you can go 100 miles an hour.
Well, you shouldn't. Let me put it that way, okay?
I don't want to seem as though we're pontificating and we're on a soapbox trying to preach. I just wanted to stress the importance of educating yourself on a subject that you may be fearful of and that you may not want to admit that you understand completely 100%. And so hopefully the show will make you take a different look at if you are still in the I don't want to know anything about, I don't want to touch it, I don't want it in my presence, I don't want to know anything about the Ouija board. If you're still in that realm of thinking, it doesn't hurt, and it does not go, and I'm probably going to get nasty emails for this, it doesn't go against your religion to educate yourself on the Ouija board. I'm not going to go on that realm, but it doesn't go against your religion to educate yourself. It may go against your religion to utilize it, but it doesn't go against your religion to educate, to read a book about it or to read an article about it, to understand what it is. You know, we are all not saints in this world. We've all done sins. And if you want to get technical, you know, there are many things that we do unconsciously that we don't even realize are sins that are in the Bible. And so, therefore, understanding and reading about the Ouija is probably the least on that list to understand. So, I don't want to go on. I don't want to get onto the religion part of it. But anyway, just trying to educate yourself on what you don't know is the most important thing. And we've always stressed that enough. We can't stress that enough, that research and education and understanding the topic of the paranormal will continue always. You will never fully understand what the paranormal is all about. And that's the good thing about it, because it will continue your search. it will pull forth a spark in you to continue always learning and always searching and always looking for an answer. There's never going to be a aha moment or a point in your life. There will be a point in your life when you will find that truth, and that is when you die. Point blank. That is when you will find the truth. But until then, I think the amazing part of life is understanding what death is all about and what the afterlife is all about, because and it may sound morbid to people when you say, I'm into the paranormal and I'm into, understanding and learning all about death and talking to spirits and all that. People may think it's all so morbid and sinister and dark or whatever, but I found that it's the complete opposite, because it actually, learning about death teaches you about life, and it makes you understand what you're living for and what you should appreciate more in this day, right at this moment now, because understanding what is going to happen to you will diminish the fear and allow you to live a healthier, freer life now. That's the reason why I had first gone onto this path many years ago. And so it's not so morbid in my eyes. It's not so dark in my eyes. And understanding all of the topics within the paranormal just makes it even more interesting. And it actually makes you understand the psyche of many different people and how they operate, and sort of, I don't know, I guess it puts you in their shoes a little bit of how they live by understanding what they believe in and how they believe in the afterlife.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think one of the most beautiful things about life is learning. I think we're put here to learn. We're not born knowing everything, and everything that in the paranormal that we've researched and we talk about just brings about so many more questions for me, so many more. And all of those questions lead on to something else, and it just increases the things that I know about life as it is. I mean, I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. But even like doing the tarot cards, to me, doing tarot cards, when I read for someone, I'm learning. Yeah, I may be learning about their situation, but it teaches me something. Every reading I do is not just for that person. It's for myself. It's a learning experience. So as we go through the paranormal, and the more we experience and the more that we learn about, it just adds to how amazing life is. I mean, it's so cool. It really is. So a show like this that we talk about the Ouija, it's not to say, go out and get one and you really should do this. No, it's more learning about something that you don't know and maybe taking some of that fear away from it. We're not saying go and use one. If you're scared of it, you're scared of it. I mean, bottom line, you don't ever do anything that you're afraid of. But by learning what something is, you lessen the fear. I mean, talking to someone from the Church of Satan, didn't make you evil. You were already evil.
I think last week, Jeffrey Dahlman was calling you the devil, not me.
I have no comment on that.
Okay. No, I'm glad we had Karen Dahlman on the show. She was great. She is a breath of fresh air, just like Bob Murch is. They're sort of on that same plane, and I would love to go to Baltimore and listen to her speak, and Bob and everyone else. That does sound like a great WouijaCon. And Baltimore has the first and only Ouija or Spirit Board Museum, which Bob has told us about this, I think it was early last year or mid last year that it was first opening up. And it just has amazing information and exhibits on the spirit board and spiritualism and the history on the Fold family and just everything. I think it would be an amazing trip, even just to see the museum itself. If you didn't go to the OuijaCon, just to see the museum. If you're interested in it, I think it would be really cool and one of those sort of creepy stops to go to and check out. I think it would be a cool, Instagram picture day, I think.
I think it'd be cool to do a show from there.
From the museum?
Yeah, from the OuijaCon. I think it would be cool.
If people say that the boards carry spirits and hold spirits, wouldn't that be a cool investigation to see what spirits come out of the boards? But I don't think that's the truth. I don't believe in the spirits holding the boards. I don't believe in any of that. But anyway,
I would just like to see locations kind of lose the fear of it. I really would, because I think some of the locations, I think it would be really interesting to see what else you get. It's just another tool. It's just like using the spirit box or the ovulus. I mean, there's no fear of that, and you allow those in. And I just think the Ouija is just one other tool. And hopefully in the future, some locations will change, just on my wish list.
We have, and you've seen it on television and online, and stories from other groups that have talked about their experiences. When they've done it just from speaking to spirits at a location. Technically, you don't need a board to do that. You have great encounters without it. But yeah, I mean, an added tool can only help add to the experience or to the roster of possible evidence, whether or not it's believable evidence. Obviously people can't even believe a video. So what are they going to believe in a Ouija board moving? There's also the folks out there that say, and there's the scientific community stating that we move the board. There's that terminology which is skipping my mind right now. I think it's something with an I, a word with an I, that the muscle motor movement in our hands unconsciously moves the planchette over the board, and we subconsciously are moving it as we are communicating, as we are talking. We are moving the actual planchette ourselves, and subconsciously doing that, not even realizing it. But I don't believe in that school. I don't believe in that idea that we're moving it. There's just too many things that come out of speaking to the board that, even like Karen said, she didn't even know that her friend's sister died. So how could she subconsciously have a muscle movement to create that answer while communicating? There's just too many, quote unquote, coincidences that happen. So I don't subscribe to that subscription. So I don't know. Me, I've always got that, one eye open and that skeptical ear turned. But I don't believe it in all cases. If that, do I believe people fake things? Yes. I completely agree to that.
Yes.
Do I believe that that's happening with people? Yeah, I do. Is it happening with everyone? No. Absolutely not.
I don't believe. I don't believe that we move it. Like you said, I do believe that there are some people out there that move it on their own, but I think those are the people that really aren't using it for the same reason. They're using it for a thrill. And just like everything else, I mean, even investigating, there's people out there that they do it just for the thrill of it. They do it just, to be scared. I mean, to me, it's like, if you want a thrill, go ride a roller coaster. There are some of us that truly want to make that connection, and this is just another tool. I don't think it's evil. I don't expect everyone to believe what I believe, but to me, it's not evil. It's a tool, and I'll definitely use it. I will. I mean, my mouse pad is a Ouija board.
Trina says that she used to fake it before she got married 16 years ago, but I don't think we're talking about that. So there you have it, folks. The other side of the Ouija board. We've talked about that several times. We'll probably have more discussions on it. I'd love to do another debate on the Ouija board. Maybe we can have Karen on the panel and have some other folks on to talk about it and debate it and see where we end up. I think, what would be really interesting is have Karen on and have a owner of a location on who does not want. That would be an interesting show.
Yeah. No, that I'll get started on it. I will. That would be interesting because I would like, seriously, on the negative side, I really want to talk to somebody and really understand where the negativity is coming from. I really want to understand. I really want to, and if it's a personal experience, I think I would believe that more. But
it's fear. It's fear.
But fear of what?
It's fear of the unknown. Let me just pose this to you. Before you got into the paranormal, did you or did you not fear death?
Yeah, I guess to a point.
I mean, to a point, you still do. I mean, you don't want to die right now because you want to continue living and you've got things that you want to do.
Right.
You fear death in that way. But what I'm saying is fearing death because you don't know what is going to happen after your lungs stop moving and your heart stops beating. That's the fear is what I'm talking about, what happens after that. I don't fear that because I know what goes on after that. I know where we go, what we do, and what happens. I know in my heart I know what happens. And so the fear of not knowing makes you avoid the situation. It makes you shun it away. So I guarantee you, before you got into the paranormal, you really didn't want to talk about death. You really didn't want to deal with it because you were afraid to deal with it. You were afraid to know the truth of what you thought was the truth because probably in that mind frame, and put away the Native American side, put away all of that. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. I shouldn't be talking to you about this. But let me just say to a normal, different person who does not have the background that you have.
Oh, I'm not normal.
No. To a person who doesn't have the background that you have. They may have had fear of death, or they probably still do, fear of death where they don't know what's going to happen. Even though they may even have a religious background, they still have that fear of, oh, my God, I'm going into the unknown by myself. Once my heart and my lungs stop and my brain ceases, where am I going? What is going to happen? Is it just blank? Is it just darkness? Am I going to heaven? Am I really going to heaven? Am I going somewhere? Or is there something else that's just dark, that's just nothing? Am I going to be alone? And so that fear, you don't want to think about it. You don't want to deal with it. No. That's not there. I'm going to heaven. I know because I believe in the Bible. I'm going to heaven. That's what God says. Jesus saved me. I'm going to heaven. That's what it is. But you still have that fear. I think that's what they have. That's because they don't want to deal with the Ouija board. They don't want it near them. They don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want it in their home. They don't want it in their life because they fear it. They don't know what goes on. They believe it's some voodoo, hoodoo, devilish, demonic, satanistic, ritualistic game. And I think that's where it comes from, why people don't understand it, or why people fear it, or why people don't want it near them.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just hard for me to understand that. I mean, with my background and everything that I've learned, I mean, growing up, I mean, death was kind of part of life. I mean, you know it's there. But, yeah, I guess it is the fear of not knowing where you're going to go, which fuels my search into the paranormal. I want to know. I want to know what it's like on the other side. I want to know where we go and what we see and what we feel. And when our energy leaves this plane and it goes to the next plane, how cool is that going to be? I don't see it as a dark, forbidding place. I see it as a new beginning.
I can't wait to haunt the crap out of some people on a list that I'm going to create. Can't wait.
My list is already made.
Oh, I have a list, but it just keeps growing. All right. Thank you, Karen A. Dahlman, for coming on the show. Great topic. Always a great topic to talk about the Ouija. Thank you guys in chat and everybody for listening. It's been a great show. I think it's time that we talk about who is the fan of the week, Lucy.
Oh, this week our Paranormal Review Radio fan of the week is Ashley Langley of Lake Jackson, Texas. Ashley just recently messaged us. She said, I just recently found the podcasts on YouTube, and I'm a huge fan. Thanks for adding me. Love from Texas. A little bit about Ashley. She likes Kill, Switch, Engage, Slipknot, Shakira, The Dead Files, Ghost Adventures, Paranormal State, Game of Thrones, and, of course, she likes Paranormal Review Radio. Thank you so much for listening, Ashley, and congratulations.
Yeah, Ashley, thank you so much for that great note that you sent us. And did you pick her because she likes Game of Thrones? Is that why?
Maybe.
No. I'm kidding. Don't forget, if you want to be a Paranormal Review Radio fan of the week, just like us on Facebook, or as Ashley did, just subscribe to us on YouTube at Paranormal Review Radio.
Well, the Ouija continues to have a negative reputation due to the lack of true research into what it can truly do. As we saw tonight, there is a right way and a wrong way to use this tool, and just like anything else we do when attempting to contact the other side, the preparation we do before communicating can make all the difference in the results we get. Learning to use the board is just as important as any other piece of equipment you own. As more people like Karen bring us their insights into the Ouija, we can lose the fear that many feel when the idea of using a talking board comes up. We want to thank Karen for opening up our minds just a little bit tonight, and maybe next time you might consider using one on your next investigation. So let's talk about opening our minds. We did a show back in October where we talked to Kai Blackwood. You remember Kai, the guy who sold a soul to Satan? Well, he didn't, and talking to him was actually a really cool experience. Kai is a musician, he's a filmmaker, and he's got some interesting ideas about UFOs, aliens, life here on this planet we call home, and death. We had so much fun with Kai, we just had to have him back on. So, join us next Friday night as we welcome him back and spend the evening tapping into his mind as we talk about the world according to Kai Blackwood. Thank you, everyone, for spending time with us. You guys are all family now. Thank you, Anthony, for piloting the spaceship into the unknown. So, until next week, dear Parapeeps, keep your eyes and minds open and have a paranormal week. Good night.
Stay warm, everybody. Good night.
Paranormal Review Radio.